All right. Uh, so let me put this down just a little bit. So I listened to Ezekiel today. I put on the Bible reader and I listened to it on cassette. And I listened pretty good for myself, which you'll get a concept of what that is. It's I don't know. I ended up making it over here. So I ended up making it into this zone that is uh, I'm like God's executioner. Uh, I'm actually the guy who actually does the dirty work. Sometimes for the Lord does all the heavy lifting. But this dirty work, there's some in the book of Revelation, there's some dirty work. And there's talk about dirty work, and then there's talk about dirty work in Ezekiel. Uh, it is when I say dirty work, it is dirty work, dude. It is really some dirty judgment work, dude. Uh, it seems to make sense for somehow that like I fit in God's hand as like this actual executioner of judgment. And I'm fully aware though. I don't. I'll even look it up for you right now. Is vengeance belongs to the Lord. This would be Romans 12:19. So this would be New Testament, and it says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge; I will repay," says the Lord. So it seems like what this is Romans. I mean, uh, this is Romans. I believe this is again Paul, the apostle Paul, taking most of the heavy lifting of writing the New Testament. And then there's some others that I'm talking about now in this New Testament zone uh, that come back, that kind of come back. I mean, David is in there, but Ezekiel's in the Old Testament. Uh, but this is Paul, and he's the 13th apostle. He's the only apostle to be added after Christ died. Everybody else can categorize themselves as a disciple. If you've been to Awanas, that's what they teach you. They teach you your Sunday school. If you've been to Sunday school, this is the stuff they tell you in Sunday school. These are all the same answers. Is you know is yeah, everything that I was just saying. I'm sorry, I got to move on. My train of thought is moving on. So Romans is written by Paul. He's the only apostle. There we go. He's the only apostle added after the death of Christ. Everybody else was alive during the 12 disciples. The 12 disciples of Christ were the 12 apostles. And after the death of Christ, God calls everyone to make disciples everywhere throughout all nations of Christians, of Christian breed, of Christian of Christian brand, whatever you want to, however you want to think about it. But it's about connecting and reconnecting Christians and making Christians. And then there's one other apostle that's added to the end of Christ's life on earth, and that's the apostle Paul, whose name was Saul. He changed his name on the road. Jesus changed his name on the road to Damascus. Been to Awanas, and instantly became the 13th apostle, and turned his life around immediately, and did all this stuff and wrote the New Testament. And we still hold it to be the absolute canon to this day, by far. And then all these, every letter that he wrote to a church, it's in the book. Romans, Acts, Romans, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, First and Second Corinthians, First and Second, probably even Thessalonians. I'm not really sure, but as it goes on, there's not that many more books in the Bible. And then there's Revelation. Uh, and I'm not myself like completely sound on all the books yet, but I think you can find all the stuff on the internet. But you just know that if you look at these, that's a lot right there. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then after that, there's Acts and Romans, First, Second Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, First, Second Thessalonians. And then I don't know if he wrote to Timothy. I don't even remember. I don't remember. And I don't remember Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James. But then Peter and John. First and Second Peter is probably important. And then First and Second, Third John are probably pretty important. These are probably the same Peter and the same John from the 12 disciples, and then Jude and Revelation. So that's like the big meat right here is like right here, Acts, Romans, all this is, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John being the first four, and then Jude and Revelation. I don't know who wrote Jude, but first, second Peter, first, second, third John, and Revelation. And then almost everything else you'd think was probably actually written by Paul, the 13th apostle. That'd be more than any single other disciple would have wrote. It was all these letters, and this was from a guy who actually persecuted Christians, killed Christians. He was killing Christians, and then he met Jesus for 2 seconds, and then he became the most powerful apostle. And he's the most powerful apostle for how he understood the mind, body, spirit, and he just hasn't been saying anything about it. But the mind, body, spirit is this magnificent treasure. Okay, they're talking about something. All right. So anyway, so I listened to Ezekiel today, and Ezekiel, and it's even amazing. Ezekiel is in the is written in the Old Testament, and uh, Ezekiel's actually simple. It's actually really simple. It's just long. There's a lot of it. It's all there. I'm guessing it's all probably right in Ezekiel, and then whatever else, just from reading the whole Bible, you'll probably get the rest of it. But before I even go any further, even talking about Ezekiel, is that you have to understand that actually one thing is very, very, very important that you have to understand is the key to reading Ezekiel and Revelation is just like I was saying last night. The key to reading Ezekiel, and it is, I am right, I was right about, I'm thinking, my theory on the Bible and the universe and nature and life and people is that the key to reading Ezekiel and Revelation is a time travel Captain America. Time traveling Captain Planet, Captain America. That is the key to reading the two, I think, and I haven't read Daniel yet. Daniel might be written a lot. There might be a lot in Daniel like this that is written this way, which is with this prophetic dream language. And Daniel was, a prophetic dream prophet, I believe. Or I think Daniel was another one of these kind of wicked, crazy guys. Kind of like just crazy guys, like these crazy guys. There's some crazy guys, dude. And God puts him in the Bible, and there's all this crazy stuff. So I have yet to read Daniel. I'll probably listen to that next, or read that next. But Ezekiel is easy. Revelation really leads you, and then Revelation is easy to me. And Ezekiel is written the same way, and it's actually not even written. It's written actually. It just starts the same way, but it's after that. After you get past the beginning of like who exactly is saying what, because there's a lot of there's a lot of pronouns that get thrown around, and it seems like Ezekiel is being referred to as this capital S Son of Man. but for what Ezekiel does actually go through is it does seem to be uh, interesting that he's referred to as a capital S, Son of Man. That's like God's status. And Ezekiel, this is Ezekiel. This is Ezekiel because actually, I think it's Elijah. Elijah, Elijah, like chariot to heaven, into a whirlwind. Yeah, Elijah. So Elijah is Ezekiel's not even the one. Ezekiel's not even the one who did uh, who actually went up in the chariot of fire, and that's really important. That was actually Elijah. Elijah went up in the chariot of fire and it was assumed into heaven. He was just assumed in his when his life was over. He was assumed into heaven, and it probably for any breath of my imagination, it's because of my Mars beginning. It's because something about it is like God really wanted everybody to to go slowly. God really wanted everybody to move slowly, and some of these people, be it the people of the Tower of Babel and Elijah, is like they were just moving too quickly for the rest of the human race. They're all moving too quickly for the rest of the human race, and here I am trying to move quickly myself. But Elijah is actually the one that actually was assumed into heaven in the chariot of fire, and he's also the one that brought fire to brought fire and that brought fire to to barren and brought like rain and vegetation to the famished, uh, and he just did it. And then and it's just and the whole thing is this. I mean, it's not even. I guess it's kind of not as crazy if you just know what is happening. Is that he was just really, 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 really there with God. And people really are not there with God all the time. Really, where they're just like, I mean, just let's go, let's just do this, and then God does it. Uh, you know, so and then to look up the other things. Who walked on water? Peter. Yeah, okay, Peter. So, even better, the best, actually, the best possible. So a couple of things after reading Ezekiel, a couple things I want to do is I want to actually convert to Catholicism. But I don't know how to do it exactly. I don't know how to convert to Catholicism because I think part of the whole thing about Catholicism is that it's probably not something that I actually myself am probably super fond of or proud of right now. But what I can do is I can use the internet to convert to Catholicism. So I might be an internet Catholic. Because basically you can probably get all of the content that you want from Peter and the Catholic Church without dealing with all the power struggle because it's something about it runs like it runs like a darn organization. And all the stuff inside of it, and then creating the canon for the Bible and all that stuff. It's all run by trusted people of Peter, of Peter. And then you may wonder, think about just how hungry the power struggle is in the Catholic Church, how hungry it's been, how bad it's been, and then the Crusades being something that was like completely is just something about that church, the Church of Peter, uh, that like turned into a weapon, a global weapon. The Church of Jesus Christ turned into a global weapon through Catholicism. Uh, Roman, and then the impure, and then I think it was, empirical Roman Catholicism. So it's like these are like Caesars and stuff that are like, doing all this, and then we start talking about the separation of church and state, in America. I think that's like around the time of America. And America, I don't know, something about America too is that America has always been great. America has always been great. It has always been. It's just like how we're talking about all this. America. It just kind of depends on how you look at America and really what's been going on for the past about 100 years or so. But I'm not proud of 100 years. I'm not proud of 100 years, except there's almost no period to be more proud of America than actually the period of World War I, World War II, Cold War, and almost World War III. Because democracy and I mean, there's how many amendments, honestly? How many amendments to the Constitution? How many amendments to the Constitution? 27. And it's been around for at least, whatever, so do the math. 20 minus, I mean, I guess you can say like, so for about 220, it's about 200 years or so. But the whole thing is, I mean, America started so long before that, and it's 1776. What did I write? 2020 minus 1776. Yeah, 200. Okay, 244 years of it. So in its 244 years, almost half of it has been corrupt. But you know what? Is that the second 200 years, the second 244 years, or the 200 years, second 200 years, uh, have actually revealed the strength of America, the strength and fortitude of America, the fortitude of the American Constitution and the American democracy, and you know that basically America got started around 1492. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. The That's the 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's important, and let me tell you why. Because before that, there's all this speculation. The speculation is probably true. Amerigo Vespucci probably is the person who is actually to be credited for what is going on, what we have today in America. His name was Amerigo Vespucci. He was maybe somebody that got to know, say, the Mayans or whoever. I don't know. But just got to know the Native Americans, and that they was the first to make relationships with the Native Americans. Was the first to even talking to even like getting talking about like anything that we have today. But what we know is that ever since Columbus did it, is that it was wide out in the open. So that's like that. So 1492. That's a good marker. So let's just measure 2020 minus 1492. That's 500 years. So if America was an iceberg, it's been independent for almost half, just about half. It's been independent for just about half of its life. And then the other half of America's life was were people like Christopher Columbus, who were and Napoleon. People like Napoleon, people like Christopher Columbus. People like these people. Maybe these people are a little bit greater than everybody else, but people like these people who are going to venture over here. And then you know who those people were? Were white men. They were white men from Europe, and they were Puritans of Puritanism. Let me just like double check Puritanism. I think it's like Quakerism. You'll probably find it's like a Quakerism. Pure. Okay, Puritanism was a religious reform movement that began in England in the late 1500s. Its initial goal was removing any remaining links to Catholicism within the Church of England after its separation from the Catholic Church. To do this, Puritans sought to change the structure and ceremonies of church. Blah 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 blah. I'm thinking the Puritans is what leads to our evangelicalism. Evangelicalism. Evangelicalism stands for Christianity, or evangelical Protestantism, is a worldwide trans-denominational movement within Protestant Christianity that maintains the belief in essence of the gospel of the gospel consists of the doctrine of salvation by grace alone, solely through faith in Jesus Christ. In faith in Jesus. And then just one look at Protestantism. Protestantism is the faith and practice of the church order of the Protestant church. Protestant. This is all my stuff. The Protestant, member or follower of the Western Christian Church, the Western Christian churches that are separate from the Roman Catholic Church and following the principles of the Reformation, including the Baptist, Presbyterian, Lutheran, and the gospel, and I'll tell you right now, is like these are the keys to reading Ezekiel and Revelation. Is like you got to know a little bit about the designer, and I wrote it. I put it in the notes, I put in the notes in the description of this video. You're hearing this stuff from me first. You don't know you're hearing this stuff from me first because I can give you such congruency of information. Is that you don't even know you didn't even know that what you're hearing is not even written in the history books. It is written in the history book. I'm just showing you how to read the history book. But you are hearing this from me first. So, and the key is time traveling Captain Planet, Captain America. That is the key. And I'm Jewish. And the whole point of this thing is that the Catholic Church, that's the Church of Peter. And it faced a ton of corruption, and that's one of the reasons why America is even around. And what I just read is that because of how the Catholic Church was, is that these people called Puritans come over here, and these are their pilgrims. These Puritans are your pilgrims. These are adventurers. These are adventurers, and they're here to separate from the Catholic Church of Peter. To separate from because it was so because it was so corrupt. And I'll tell you who corrupted it. I'll even tell you who started with the corruption. It's just like it's the same exact stuff as we have in America today. The corruption jumped from the Catholic Church to the Protestant Church. And out of church and state, but into the American government, is we have pedophile cannibals. We have pedophile cannibals, and those pedophile cannibals trace all the way back to the Roman Catholic Church, but to the Roman Empire. And then it itself does not belong in the Catholic Church, the pedophile cannibal crap. But we have the same exact stuff as what there was back in the days of Peter and his church. Is corruption, just great satanic corruption efforts, and this is just a hungry group of people, but it's just it is actually just improper. There's one thing to be hungry and fight and have a lot of fight in you and have a lot of life in you, have a lot of fight in you, and have a lot of gumption and gusto and stuff like that too. But it's a whole other thing to be a pedophile cannibal. And we have pedophile cannibals in our government. And QAnon will talk about pedophile cannibals. Pedophile cannibalism is Satanism. Just the satanic crap in possession and all that's honestly possession, levitation. Like literally this Freemason stuff, possession and levitation and all this stuff, just comes from the Roman Catholic Church. It comes from the Roman Catholic Church. All this stuff. I'm talking about ghost powers and all this stuff. It comes from the Roman Catholic Church. Peter walked on water for 2 seconds. And then Satan tried to corrupt the Catholic Church, and then it was corrupt through, and it was so corrupt. It actually got to such a point. It was so corrupt with mostly, probably honestly, sexual stuff. And the Crusades, but honestly, mostly, it was probably mostly corrupt with sexual stuff. That the Protestants decided to make their own just thing on the New Testament, and then that's where we get that's where we get. I mean, basically, that's where we get the version of Ezekiel that I read last night and this morning, which is the ESV, and they say in the church-going world is that the English Standard Version is a good version to do biblical study on. Is that it's a good English speaking Bible. But the best English speaking Bible still is probably going to be the Catholic Bible, because it was the church that the Lord chose, the Catholic Church, and then the corruption charge is great. And what you'll find is that basically, as we start explaining Ezekiel and Revelation, is like Revelation is the revelation of Jesus Christ as told through John of Patmos. Whoever that is, we still have to figure out who that is exactly. The process of elimination is that's how you actually read the revelation. It's just revealed. It's revealed in a form that's like process of elimination. And great eliminators, great big eliminators, great eliminators. Great micro, great eliminators. It's not about micro macro. It's not micro macro is one tiny thing. But yes, great on a detailed plane and great on a great plane, a great big plane. How you read Ezekiel and Revelation is I mean, like I said, you have to be a time traveling Captain Planet to read it. That's the key to reading. That's the key to understanding it. And the key to understanding, as I lost my train of thought a little bit, but Protestantism comes from the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say is the charge of corruption in the Catholic Church is great. And the charge of corruption in the Jewish church is not. There is really not much from God. God's people do some stuff, it sounds like, but there is almost nothing about the rabbinical church, or whatever you want to call it, dude, honestly. There's like nothing on the Judaic church. God doesn't give two flips about how corrupt it was back there and how corrupt it is. He calls out his people as a rebellious people and rebellious against the Lord. And they were just rebellious about the Lord. And then it's about how after I get my message across, the Jews should have one really good look at, honestly, what they really think about Jesus. But Ezekiel is a book of good testament and good work and good faith and good gospel, which is that it does end very well. Ezekiel ends very well. Ezekiel ends proper, but then there's a whole book called Lamentations. There's Lamentations in Ezekiel, so you have to read Lamentations to see what that's about too. But in the whole, I think for basically the power struggle, which is control. So the control of the Jewish church and the control of the Roman Catholic Church is regained. It is regained and refueled and restructured and refueled. It's ready to go again, and it's even got its original players back in the saddle. It even talks about how Ezekiel is that David's going to join you. King David's going to join you. He's going to go back in the saddle. I think you're going to have David drive. And then Peter will be back in the saddle, and then with the Catholic Church. And then it was like I said, is that for the charges of corruption, there is almost nothing done about the Judaic corruption. And there is clearly Judaic corruption. It's how the whole thing happened in the first place. It never went away. But Jesus only calls out to his people, and he says, and he tries to offer deliverance to his people through Ezekiel, who is referred to in the Bible as one. I mean, he has quite a title. It is the exact title of Jesus. It is the exact, Jesus, Son of Man. And just make sure I'm right about that. Jesus, Son of Man. Son of God is God and man. But since he is Son of Man is an expression in the saying of Jesus in Christian writing. Yeah, because he's also Son of Man. Why is Jesus called the Son of Man? He is called the Son of Man, son of Adam, like a man. He's like a man, but he was Son of God. Son of Adam, Son of Man, like a man. And then basically, and then Ezekiel and Revelation both being these are both books in the Christian Bible written about the Christian finish. And the Christian finish starts now, and then the key to reading it is that none of these guys were around to tell you how it's to be read. That's what I'm supposed to do. I am supposed. Once I was ready to handle all this information, I was supposed to relay this information to you. I guess that would make me something of a prophet, I guess. And I don't like to say that because I never thought of myself as a prophet. I don't know but it's just what I can tell you is that I'm Captain Planet. And Captain Planet can read this stuff, and Captain Planet believes in this stuff. And Captain Planet is also Captain America and anti-Nazi. Hates the Nazis. And then it's about how the rest of it is about how I have time to do all this fancy fangled stuff like make the Disney movies and do the time traveling saucers and actually do that stuff, actually get around to doing it before I die. Even it seems like it's about how I end up winding up in a position of great power. I can do a lot about a lot of stuff. I can do a lot about a lot of stuff. It's about me discovering how to do time travel and how I can explain the grandfather paradox to you. So Ezekiel and Revelation are both books that are written about the end of times. Ezekiel 1 starts right off with what I believe to be the greatest weapon against the Antichrist, which is those four living creatures. The greatest weapon against the Antichrist, and they seem to be potentially quite devout in their conquest against the Antichrist. So that's what I think they are, and the reason I think that is because the symbolism of their all seeing eyes. The symbolism of their all seeing eyes is consistent with just consistent with my Nasty Boy camera. It's just it is strict, and it's strict. It will strictly see everything, and it has good programming. It has good justice. You can't do anything. You can't even commit a crime on me. And it has time traveling capabilities. You can't even commit a crime on me. It's gonna see everything. You can't pull a single fast one on me. It's about how you can't pull fast ones on the government. My national board camera. It's about how you can't my cloney drone. It's about how you can't pull fast ones on anybody. Democracy kept this thing in check, and then this thing keeps everybody in check. And you just insert one of these things into a democracy, America, and you got a perfect planet. And then I was Jewish, and Israel has some thinking to do. Is that I'm the most powerful person I think that you'll ever meet. The rest of it is about how I go back in time and I bring back Einstein, I bring back Abraham Lincoln on our side, and I bring back all these crazy people. And then but who else I bring back is David. I bring back David and Solomon and all these other people, even Solomon, and just understanding that like the kingdom of God was real and all that stuff. That like David and Solomon come back and it's not even terrible. Somehow it's like not terrible. Uh, David and Solomon and Uriah all come back, and then Uriah is not a punk dweeb, completely a punk dweeb. Everyone actually, and then David fights for the kingdom of God. He might be humbled. It's just the kingdom of heaven has a certain way where the first shall be last and the last shall be first.